This week on our free preview, Lauren and I were fortunate enough to be a part of the Together Her conference for women in business. We recorded it live and now we're giving it straight to you. Join us as we talk about wealth for women and the gender wage gap. For now, sit back, relax, and join us as we take you through the numbers. Thank you so much, Shannon, and thank you all for joining us here today on this special edition of By the Numbers. Lauren and I get together every week and we go through a number of headlines and dig in and kind of put numbers to what's typically noisy and kind of fearful for some people. And our job is really to bring it down to earth, put the numbers to it, put the ITR analysis to it all, and make it fun and engaging and as well as insightful. So I usually start by asking you how your weekend was, but this is a little bit of a special.
This is a special event. I'm so excited to be here, honestly.
So our first headline of the day is Women's Wealth is Growing and Wealth Managers are Adjusting. The article, in summary, talks about how among the sea of changes in the American economy during this decade is the growing share of financial assets held by women. They're earning more in their work lives, they're inheriting more in their family lives, and as the great wealth transfer gains steam, innumerable women's accounts will benefit. So, let's start with the why. You know, I love a good why.
Absolutely.
I always need to know the why behind things, which is why I think I get along with everybody that needs the data. So why are we seeing this shift in this kind of gender play within the overall wealth?
Within wealth,
yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, a lot of these are societal trends, right, that have been picking up. You mentioned women just working more, right? They entered the workforce, so women earning their own. I mean, how late was it that women couldn't get a credit card in their own name? We've made a lot of those societal jumps, but I know it's a little too recent.
Yeah.
But as I look at this trend, the great transfer of wealth, I see it really in two steps. The first one that we all think about so much, and you and I more than anyone else, because we are that dreaded millennial generation, is that intergenerational wealth transfer. Baby boomers retiring, kind of drawing down the assets, looking at, generational transfer, passing that wealth that they've accumulated onto their kids. And so I have our first chart to go into.
Always love when you bring a chart.
Oh, I love a good chart.
It's got a pretty scary pink line on it.
Yeah, that's the silent generation. So what this chart is showing, this is the share of corporate equity ownership and mutual funds. So essentially, think of ownership of stocks. The pink line that is going down, that's the silent generation who are now kind of aging out of owning stocks, let's say. There are fewer and fewer of them around to have this ownership. But who's really replacing them? The baby boomers. That's a huge generation. And
that
as
dark
you
blue
see,
line.
That dark blue line, that rose very robustly. And they now account for about 54%, so more than half of all equity ownership. What's really interesting to note is how this gets handed down. Whereas the silent generation, again, a relatively smaller generation, we call the baby boomers boomers for a reason. There was a boom of them all at once. That large generation, they're first of all working longer, living longer, but we don't see the generations behind them really stepping up in the same way to own stock. So I see this as, potentially some selling pressure as baby boomers do eventually need to retire and draw down on this investment portfolio just to fund their retirement, finally get to enjoy those golden years.
Yep. We
just don't see either Gen X or millennials even at that same point, right, that same age in their life as the baby boomers owning the same amount of stock. This is a little bit of a dated study. It was from, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Blau and Kahn.
The article says that research has shown that being a mother can reduce women's earnings, while fatherhood can actually increase men's earnings.
Right.
You're a relatively new mom.
I know. I've heard this called the motherhood penalty.
Motherhood penalty.
Motherhood penalty, that once you have start a family, right, have that kind of first kid, now you have other responsibilities. And it's true, our society is not at a point where things are balanced, right? Taking care of kids and housework, et cetera.
Yeah.
I do think it's getting better, but
yeah,
I don't know, a lot of personal relationships going on there. But the understanding is your employer says, hey, you have kids now. I know you're going to have to step back. You're not giving me your 100% because you now have this thing you have to keep alive.
So what's the perception there? Like, you're not equally as competent in perhaps the position that I have that's a promotion to you
or just as dedicated, right? If you don't have enough to put into the job, you have something else. Versus the fatherhood, there's no fatherhood penalty, right? There doesn't seem to be.
It seems to be doing the opposite according to the research.
It does. And again, I think there's some co-correlations happening there that just as men get older, they tend to have kids, right? You don't go backwards in it. And so they are progressing in their careers. I'm not sure that was totally normalized, but again, hard to say because these are so intangible, these factors that we're looking at. But it's true, motherhood, measurable penalty.
Well, have you had a measurable penalty?
I haven't. So as you know, my daughter's almost 2 now.
Yeah.
And I feel like the past 2 years have been just the absolute best of my career. But I also come at this from the point personally that I've never felt worse at ITR that I'm being paid less than my male counterparts.
Right.
And I really think this group, I mean, we're economists, we get it. We know what the input is, what you're giving, and we're, I think at least, paid fairly for the contribution we make.
Well, and one of the really attractive things that you and I both, I don't think we had ever talked about it before, but in preparation for this show, we talked about how cool it was at ITR to come in, and even when you were interviewing and you saw you had a female manager and her manager was a female.
Yes. And her manager was a female. It was 3 up the ladder. And
that's wild.
When I first walked into this office to interview, just counting, it was more than a 50-50 split, and I had never been in that environment before. As I told you, I came from the asset management industry, which getting better, but still definitely skews male. And that's what I come back to just time and time again when I'm talking to companies. We are in a very tight labor market. And so anything you can do that is going to, even if there is no wage gap, say you're paying everyone fairly, but there's a perception that is absolutely just going to lose. Like if I felt that way about my job here at ITR, I would be looking for another job, to be perfectly honest.
Absolutely. And that's all the time we have for today on our free preview. Remember to like and subscribe. And if you'd like to watch full-length episodes, including the live broadcast of this one, remember to subscribe to our Insider Plus. The link is in the description below. But until next time, bye, Lauren.
Bye, Lindsay.